Patrick Haggerty here, Basin Youth for Christ, Broadway Theater in Malin. When we last left off, which has been several weeks now, we were finishing up in the Gospel of John, John chapter 9. We finished the story about the man born blind, and that ushers us into John chapter 10, where the entire theme of this chapter is this overarching theme that Jesus calls himself the Good Shepherd. And it's going to be a chapter that is loaded with shepherding and caring for livestock sorts of analogies, especially from the time frame of 2,000 years ago. But let's go ahead and dive in. We're just going to look at the first few verses. John chapter 10, verse 1. Jesus is speaking. I tell you the truth. Anyone who sneaks over the wall of a sheepfold, rather than going through the gate, must surely be a thief and a robber. But the one who enters through the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep recognize his voice, and they come to him. And he calls his own sheep by name, and he leads them out. After he has gathered his own flock, he walks ahead of them, and they follow him because they know his voice. They won't follow the voice of a stranger. They will run from him because they don't know his voice. And I primarily just want to emphasize in this few verses just this idea of how sheep are going to follow the voice of their shepherd. He's going to call his sheep out by name, and the sheep are going to follow their shepherd because they recognize his voice. And in that culture at that time 2,000 years ago, and still today, by the way, in some places in Israel, shepherds are out there leading their flock around from place to place to find grass that's worthwhile to graze upon. And those sheep become so accustomed to the voice of their shepherd that they won't follow the voice of a stranger. And my encouragement to us today is, how well do we know the voice of our good shepherd? How well, as his sheep, as followers of Jesus Christ, how well do we know the voice of our shepherd, Jesus? Are we intimately acquainted with the sound of his voice, the familiarity of it, his voice inflections, what he has to say with his words? Listen, man, there's so many voices right now. We're in the middle of an election, right? The election is just less than, I think, a couple months away, or a little over a couple months away. And there are voices everywhere, shouting and screaming at us to do one thing or the other, to believe one thing or the other, to vote this way, to vote that way. Voices shouting that Black Lives Matter, right? And other voices shouting all lives matter, and people are shouting at one another. It's important for us right now, every day, to just focus on following one voice. What does Jesus have to say? And will we follow him as our shepherd? Will we trust him to lead us to places where we'll find sustenance, pasture, water? Or will we listen to the voices of strangers and wherever they say and whatever they think and here and there and everywhere? No, let's follow the true north that is Jesus Christ. Listen to his voice and simply obey and follow him and become familiar, intimately familiar with what he says in this book. God bless you.